Hey, boys and girls, this is Mr. Bell, Mr. Bell's Math. Just wanting to talk to you now about multiplication and division equations. Our essential question, or what I want you to know by the end of this video, is how do you use equations, how do you solve equations that contain multiplication and division? So we're going to use division first, all right? So it says here that you can, where's my pointer tool? Here it is. You can divide both sides of an equation by the same non-zero number and the two sides will remain equal. Okay, and what that means is, just like we have been talking about for the last few days, if we have the same number and we divide both sides by the same number, or add like we did in the previous video, or subtract like in the previous video, then we'll get the same answer. So what I mean by that is, if I take, I don't know, 6 and I divide it by 3, let's say 6 equals 6, I'll get 2 over here. And if I divide this by 3, I'll get 2 over here. 2 equals 2, so that works. Okay, that's what we're talking about. So when an equation contains multiplication, you can solve both sides of the equation. You can solve by dividing both sides of the equation by the same non-zero number. All right, so any number that's not equal to 0. So let's go ahead and do a couple of examples. I have 9a equals 54, and we're going to start that one. We're going to say we're going to divide by the same number. So that's the number in this case is not going to be 54. It's going to be 9, because we want to divide by the number that's near the variable, that's associated with the variable. So I want to divide both sides of the equation by 9 in order to maintain the balance. Okay, these two cancel out, and they're canceling out, but what you get is 1 over 1, and 1 over 1 is the same as 1, and then 1 times a is a. Okay, then you divide 54 by by 9 rather, and you get 6. So your equation solution is a equals 6. And if you go and plug 6 back in to see if it's correct, you say 9 times 6 is 54. 54 equals 54, and you have a solution. Okay, so the next problem says 18 equals 6 times d. So I want to divide not by 18, because 18 is by itself. I want to divide by 6, because that's the number that's associated with the variable. So that's what we want. That's what we want to divide by. So once again, the 6's turn into 6 over 6, which is 1. 1 times d is d, and then 18 divided by 6 is 3. So our answer, our solution for d is 3. All right. And if we go back and plug it in, we say 18 equals 6 times 3. 18 equals 3 times 6 is 18. 18 equals 18. That is a solution. That checks. All right. So in this case, we're going to use multiplication to solve equations. All right. It says write an equation with an, man, I can't even read today. When an equation contains division, solve by multiplying both sides of the equation by the same number. Okay. So our property, I didn't circle the last one, but it's still important. Our property here says that you can multiply both sides of the equation by the same number, and the two sides will remain equal. Okay, so I'm going to use a real simple example. If I have 3 equals 3, and let's just say I multiply both sides by 2, that's supposed to be a 3. 2 times 3, I'll get 6, and I'll get 6. Okay, and that's how that works. All right, if I don't multiply it, if I say 3 equals 3 and I multiply this side by 2 and I don't multiply this side, I'll have 6 over here and I'll have 3 over here, and they don't equal. All right, so the key is that we have to do it to both sides. So here's a couple of examples. Now, the property said that it has to be a division problem in order for you to use multiplication. Okay, so when you see a fraction like this, that means division. All right, and what you want to multiply by is the bottom number. Okay, you want to multiply by the bottom number. So let's talk about that. So I have x over 5 equals 10. I want to multiply both sides by 5. Okay, because that's the number that's associated to the variable, and that's the one that's going to get the variable by itself. Okay, so without going into great detail, what I'm going to basically have, just like we did with that division problem, I'm going to have 5 over 5. Well, let's go into detail. Let's see, I'm going to have 5 times x over 5. I'll tell you what, let's even back up and talk about this a little bit more. Okay, so I'm just going to do the left side of the problem right now. So I'm going to have 5 times x over 5. Now this is just like multiplying any whole number by a fraction. Okay, you have to turn this into a fraction, and then you multiply the top times the top, bottom times the bottom. That gives you 5x over 5. Okay, and that's going to equal, I'll go ahead and multiply this together, 50. All right, so the 5's cancel out. They don't cancel, it's just 5 over 5 equals 1. 1 times x gives me x, so x equals 50. Okay, then we can plug it back in to check to see if we have an answer. Let me erase some of this here so we can check our answer. Man, this eraser is super slow. Alright, so I'll just erase this top part here so we can plug our answer in. So I have x over 5 equals 10, so I want to substitute 50 for 5. Does 50 divided by 5 equal 10? Yes, it does. So 10 equals 10. That's a solution. It checks. Okay. Now let's get rid of all that and do this other problem. So next one, we have 15 equals r times 2. Or r divided by 2, rather. Okay, so I'm going to kind of scoot this over a little bit. Let me use black ink. 15 equals r over 2. I want to multiply by 2 because that's my bottom number. So I want to multiply this side of the equation by 2 as well. All right, 2 times 15 is 30. And then I have these two cancel out. It leaves me with just r. And guess what? 30 equals r. All right, we can go back and plug it in and say 15 equals 30 over 2. 15 equals whatever 30 divided by 2 is, which is, guess what? 15. That checks. Okay, so it's hard. When you have a division problem, it's hard not to just go ahead and automatically assume what the answer may be. Like you may think, okay, I might divide 15 by 2 and get 7.5, and that's not what I want. Okay, so don't make assumptions. Go ahead and write it out. Put it on a piece of paper. Let's move on. Writing a real-world problem. So now we can take an equation, an expression that we have, and we can create a problem from it. So it says write a real-world problem for the equation 8 times x equals 72, and then solve the problem. Okay, so we can say that I don't know. I'm just going to talk about one here. A hot air balloon flew at 8 miles per hour. Write and solve a multiplication equation to find out how many hours the balloon traveled if it covered a distance of 72 miles. Okay, so we can go ahead and solve it. We can say 8 times x equals 72. All right, so it traveled at 8 miles per hour, and it traveled a total distance of 72 miles because this is a multiplication, because 8x means multiply. I want to divide by 8 on both sides. These 8's turn into 1. 1 times x is x. And then 72 divided by 8 is 9. Okay, so that means the balloon traveled for 9 hours. It's a long time to be in a hot air balloon. But that's really all there is to it. So make sure you answer the questions. Make sure you take your Cornell notes.